Hey, everybody, welcome back. This episode is brought to you by TroyCast. Check out our website. It's www.troycast.com. There you will find our blog, all these podcast episodes, and all the links to our social media. It's www.troycast.com. So for this episode, we're going back to 1999. I have my friend and pop culture expert, Erin Miller, coming back onto the show. We sadly have our 20-year high school reunion coming up in November. And the other day we started talking about some of the movies that came out the year that we graduated. And we decided that there was actually quite a few pretty darn good movies that came out that year. So we came up with this little game. We both came up with our top 5 for 1999, and we're going to compare lists. So welcome back to the show, Erin Miller. Erin, welcome back. How's it going?
Hey, good. It's good to talk to you again.
Can you believe 20-year reunion is coming up?
Oh my gosh. No. I mean, I feel like we've been out of high school for a long time, but 20 years is just like, it kind of blows my mind.
In my mind, I still feel like I'm 17 or 16 or 15 or whatever.
I do too, until I'm around some of my volleyball kids, and then I realize I'm very much not 17.
It doesn't even take that for me. All I got to do is get out of bed and then feel how my feet feel in the morning. And
walk down the stairs and I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, a little plantar fasciitis to get my feet in a little bit of pain, and it's ridiculous. So, when we were talking last about this, I didn't realize how many good movies came out in the year that we graduated in 1999.
Oh my gosh, neither did I, until I really started looking at them, and I was like, wow, I really don't know how I'm going to pick some of my favorites, because there are a ton from 99.
I know, I couldn't believe it. And what I did was to do research for what I was going to pick for my 5. I just Googled movies of 1999, and it basically gave, I don't remember what kind of list it came up. I think it was on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And it had a list of every movie that came out that year. Looking through the list, I'm like, how the hell am I going to pick 5? I would have a hard time picking 10 out of this.
Oh my gosh,
group here.
I did the same thing. I went to Wikipedia, and I think I got to like G, and I had 15 movies, and I was like, what the heck? Like, I honestly don't know how I narrowed it down. I did, but there were like a few outliers on my list that I was just like, wow, these are like quality movies. I kind of had to go through and be like, what were the ones that I continuously watch all the time, and which ones like impacted me the most. So I kind of had to give myself some ground rules to break it down, because otherwise I don't know how I would have done it.
Right. So I had a few on the bubble, and actually I had one that I want to mention before we get down to this, because I feel like if we would have done this podcast about even like a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago, that this movie probably would have been on at least one of our lists, and that's American Beauty.
Oh, totally.
Did you see that back in the day?
I did see it. I don't fully remember it, but I definitely saw it. I remember thinking it was weird, but I enjoyed it. Probably because the cast was so great.
Yeah, the cast was great, and unfortunately we found out that allegedly Kevin Spacey is a total pervert, and that kind of sours the whole
it ruins it a bit. Because he won for it too, I'm pretty sure. He won Best Actor for it too.
I don't know if he won Best Actor. I think you're right on that, but I know for sure the movie won Best Picture that year.
Yeah.
And I believe at the time it deservedly won. It had beautiful cinematography.
Yep.
Sam Mendes was the director. He did a great job. Kevin Spacey was awesome. Annette Bening was awesome too. It was kind of like a comeback role for her.
Yes.
Where Kevin Spacey we were just starting to get to know him. He had been in Seven by then. I think he was in Seven 2 or 3 years before that.
Yep,
and
I think so too.
He was great in that. And I think this movie was really where he finally got to show his chops. Now, I'm kind of disappointed that he's turned out the way he did, because I was a huge fan of House of Cards.
Yeah.
And I refused to watch the final season of House of Cards, because I don't think it's the true vision of what it was intended to be.
What it was supposed to be. I agree.
Right. And so I refused to watch it. It's not out of loyalty to Kevin Spacey, because fuck Kevin Spacey. I don't care.
Well, right.
He's a pervert, allegedly.
I mean, allegedly.
I need to caveat that. He's allegedly a pervert. He allegedly did bad things. But the evidence is good enough where I feel like I feel comfortable in not supporting his work anymore. So
Well,
honorable
I don't think
mention.
Hollywood supports his work either because he's not working now. So
Right, right. And so I would say honorable mention, but we're going to give a dishonorable mention to American Beauty before we get this kicked off. So what we did here is just to give the audience an idea of what we decided to do here is Erin and I have our 20-year class reunion coming up, as I already mentioned, in November. And we graduated in 1999. And so what we did was we broke down what we felt were the top 5 movies in 1999. And we're going to go back and forth. We both picked 5. And so let's start with you, Erin. What came in at your number 5?
okay, my number 5, and this might seem like an odd pick, but at the time it probably wasn't my favorite one in my top 5, but now it's in my top 5, and it's Toy Story 2.
Heck yeah, Toy Story 2 was a great movie.
Yeah.
And I would argue that it gets, well, maybe until Toy Story 3 came out. They're
Yeah.
all good. Let's get that out of the way.
I agree. They got increasingly better through 3. 4, I have mixed opinions about, but through 3, they're in my top 5 movies of all time. Like I put them as one being the trilogy, but top 5 of all time. Love them so much.
Yeah, 4 kind of leveled off a little bit. I wasn't as impressed. 3, holy cow, I was crying at the end of 3.
3, I still cry every time. I literally can't get through the trash scene without crying.
Yeah, is that the scene
Or
with
when they say goodbye.
incinerator?
Yes, the incinerator, yeah.
Okay, so what made you pick 2 on your list?
I loved 1. And part of it is, aside from the fact that the movie itself just resonates with us and our age, like we were pretty much Andy's age when 1 came out.
Right.
So as Andy's grown up, we've grown up. And Buzz and Woody, come on, Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, 2 of my favorite people ever. So I just already love this. But then they go on and introduce Jesse and Bullseye, and it just makes you feel like a kid again. I don't know how they really, if they consider that they're a different form of acting or whatever, but like you really just relate to all these characters and all these voices. Everybody in these movies are just like so relatable. All the references in there. Come on, Zurg ends up being Buzz's father, and he says, "I am your father." The whole Star Wars, everything about these movies, just like they just get me. And now that I can share them with my kids, and I'm a huge Disney fan, and now I can go to Disney World and I can go to Toy Story Land. They're just iconic movies. I love that Disney eventually bought Pixar, so now that we get to see everything about these just come to life too, like in Disney World.
Are you going to be getting Disney Plus next month?
Okay, I just had this discussion with Brogan. I was thinking, do I really need to do this? I already have Hulu, I already have Amazon, I already have Netflix. But like, how can I not get Disney Plus for $6.99 if it was just already like movies that have already come out and shows, but they're doing like brand new things that they're only putting on Disney Plus. So
Right.
I kind of feel like I'm going to have to get it and test it for a little while and
Yep.
at least see some of this like, original stuff that they're putting on there.
Yeah, they hooked me with. I'm not sure if you're a Star Wars fan, but just they have this new live action Star Wars show coming out called The Mandalorian. It was directed. I think it was either directed or produced by Jon Favreau. He's the guy that did.
Yep. Love him.
I think he did Lion King, Jungle Book.
Yep. Jungle Book. Yep.
He did Swingers back in the day with Vince Vaughn as an actor. And actually, the first time I
don't
remember,
forget he was the rich guy on Friends that Monica dated.
he was the rich guy from Friends. But I'm gonna top that. I'm gonna one up you with an even older role.
Okay.
He was the chubby friend of Rudy Rudiger in the movie Rudy, if you remember.
Oh my gosh, he totally was. Yes, he was.
His weight kind of fluctuated through the years.
Oh my gosh.
He really slimmed down for Swingers. By the way, Swingers is one of the most underrated movies of all time. That came into the. Have you ever seen that? First of all.
I have seen Swingers, yeah.
Oh my God, that was one of my favorites. And if it came out in '99, that totally would have been on my
It would have
list.
been on there.
Just because of the dialogue and the time it came out. It was such an underrated movie. I think it tanked in the box office, but one of those movies that got a second life on the shelf.
Yeah, I feel like it's shelf life. And because I feel like people still talk about Swingers. Like it's one of those movies that they still talk about and like.
Absolutely.
I agree.
So he's putting together this Mandalorian show for Star Wars, and some of the early reviews that I've heard about have just said it's pretty much amazing. So I'm going to get Disney Plus just for The Mandalorian.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. It's the original stuff that, I've seen all the Marvel movies. I have most of the Disney DVDs. It's this original stuff that I'm like, how can I not see that? It's the only place you're going to be able to get it.
And now having a newborn in the house, I think Disney Plus is going to be a must-have just to
obviously
throw on some animation. So
yeah, she's going to have to watch Toy Story.
Yep, exactly. And getting back to Toy Story 2. So looking at the cast here, what an amazing cast. You got Tom Hanks, obviously, Tim Allen, Joan Cusack, Kelsey Grammer. I had no idea. I don't remember Kelsey Grammer.
Yes, he was Stinky Pete.
Stinky Pete the Prospector.
He's Justin too. Yeah, he's Justin number 2.
Don Rickles, a comedian and mob movie legend. Jim Varney, remember Ernest?
Yes. Yeah, so he was in 2. By the time he passed away, he wasn't in 3 or 4, but and I can't think of his name. Harry from Home Improvement, from Harry's hardware store, ends up taking over his role in 3 and 4 after Jim Varney passed away.
For Slinky Dog?
Slinky Dog, yeah.
Wow.
And Don Rickles, another one. Okay, so Don Rickles passed away before 4 came out, and his family asked if there was a way he could still be in it. And they went back and they took sound bites that they had from the first 25 years, and they used his voice still in Toy Story 4, even though he had passed away in, I think, 2017. Yeah, but all-star cast.
They did a good job of that, because I had no idea that they used old clips of his voice to do that.
Yeah. So I think obviously in 4, Mr. Potato Head wasn't in it quite as much, which is who Don Rickles plays. But I thought that was pretty cool that they were able to go back. They just had so much, old sound bites that they could keep him in it.
All right, I'm going to test your knowledge here.
Okay.
Annie Potts as Bo Peep. Was she in all 4 of them, or was she just in 1 and 2? Because I don't remember her being...
She was not in 3, and I believe they reference... Was she in 2?
That's what it says here. It said they have her in 2. I haven't seen 2 in years.
She was in 2 then. She's not in 3, and they reference her in 3, but they don't ever say why. Obviously, we found out in 4 where she went and what happened. But in 3, they at least reference her, and Woody is sad about it.
Also, Elle the Toy Collector is Wayne Knight, also known as Newman from Seinfeld. Also, Dennis Nedry from the original Jurassic Park. No idea that he was in that. Yep. Laurie Metcalf is Andy's mom. I didn't know that either. Obviously, Arlie Emery. Everybody knows Arlie Emery from anybody that's seen Full Metal Jacket at least. So, anyways, what a good cast, and
totally
good pick for your number 5. So, I went a little bit different with my number 5, and actually, I do have one more honorable mention that I wanted to put on the list, and I'll probably get hammered for this on the internet. It was hard not to put this on my top 5, and the only reason I didn't put it on my top 5 is because I just couldn't do it because of the critical backlash that the movie got. But Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Yeah, I know that's probably one of the lowest reviewed ones of all of them, but it starts with something that's so epic, something that started so great, and then they take it back to where it goes, to Episode 1. So yeah, I see why you didn't want to put it on your list, and I know how movie critics felt about that, but it was the start of something even bigger than we knew Star Wars really was. And
actually, I think it got decent reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, or a good compilation of reviews.
Okay.
But the fans hated it. It's long known as one of the most hated Star Wars movies of all time. A lot of that was because of Jar Jar Binks, but I don't know what it was, and I don't know if it was because I was such a Star Wars fanboy growing up.
Yeah.
That I was just so excited to have more Star Wars in my life.
Right. And you could appreciate it for what it was. You're just excited to have more of it.
Yes. And so when that came out, our friend Brian was working at the movie theater, the local movie theater that we used to all go to in Commerce Township.
Just for the record, Brian was my boss because I worked there.
I remember that. I think we worked there at the same time.
Yeah, I was. He was my boss. I sold tickets. It was great. It was one of my favorite jobs. I loved that job.
Heck yeah, that was a good
see a lot of movies.
Well, that's how I saw Star Wars for free multiple times. Awesome. Don't tell United Artists, by the way. But yeah, we saw The Phantom Menace multiple times, and I just loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved Darth Maul. I was so bummed that he didn't get to come back for the rest of the trilogy. I thought he was one of the most underrated villains, or one of the most, I don't know, how do you say it? He was one of the most done dirty villains because they got rid of him and killed him in Episode 1. But
thought he had more to give.
Yeah, so I'll stop fanboying out on you. I just wanted to give one more quick honorable mention. This is not a dishonorable mention. It's an honorable mention to Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace. So coming into my number 5, I gave to For the Love of the Game. And I know it's probably not going to be on many people's list, but I am a guilty pleasure Kevin Costner fan. I love Kevin Costner. I love almost all the movies he does. I know he gets a lot of flack for his acting skills, or what people say is lack of acting skills. But For the Love of the Game, he was a pitcher for the Detroit Tigers.
Yep.
And the movie was kind of set up, the flow of the movie was kind of interesting because it wasn't presented in a linear presentation. It kind of bounced back and forth between this baseball game where this aging pitcher, he's on the brink of retirement, and we don't even know he's pitching in the process of pitching a perfect game to begin with, but he slowly throughout the movie is pitching this perfect game, and then it's also showing his relationship with Kelly Preston at the same time, who you think at the beginning is starting off as a groupie, but then it kind of blossoms into a real relationship. And I don't know. I'm not a huge rom-com guy, but this is one of my this is definitely one of my favorite sports movies. I don't know if you could even classify it as a sports movie because of the sports content is so minimal in the movie, but
Yeah, but there's so many sports movies that are still like comedies or love stories, or they're not, not all of them are just strictly sports.
yeah, look at both.
In my top five, I actually have two other sports movies, and For the Love of the Game was actually on my short list. So I'm super excited that it made your top five.
Yeah, so I love the movie. It was actually one of Sam Raimi's earlier. Well, I shouldn't say earlier movies because he had a few before this, but I didn't realize that Sam Raimi actually directed it until I did the research on this one. But we also got an earlier look at John C. Reilly and Kelly
Yep.
Preston
Yep.
and J.K. Simmons as well. I forgot that he was
Oh
in.
yes, J.K. Simmons.
Yep, he was. Not to go off on a huge tangent, but have you seen Whiplash with J.K. Simmons?
I have not. I'm
Okay,
kind of
so
embarrassed to admit that because I really wanted to see that.
Okay, so that's your homework assignment for this episode. Last time, I think it was I had to get you started to watch Billions, but Whiplash is it's probably in my top five of the top five movies of the last, I don't know, 5, 6 years here. It takes place at some fancy dancy music school in New York. I don't want to ruin it for you, but J.K.
Okay.
Simmons plays a super intense music teacher,
Yeah,
and
he was nominated and possibly won for that too.
he did win for that, and
Okay.
I feel like that movie should have won Best Picture. I don't remember what won that year. All I remember
Probably something
is,
stupid.
and actually, this was another one where I didn't really know about until I watched the Oscars, and then I saw clips of it when I was watching the Oscars that year, and I decided I wanted to watch it.
I agree. I feel like that's one that I didn't really know about either. I probably heard it at the Golden Globes because that's a month or so before. It's him and I'm drawing a total blank on the kid's name.
Miles Teller.
Yes.
Miles Teller's
Yeah.
been in some good
Like
stuff
him a
already.
lot.
He's
Yeah.
he's in the new Top Gun movie that's coming out next spring.
Oh, nice. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he's playing Goose's son.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I could see that too. He actually kind of looks like him.
So how do you feel about Coster? I feel like people either love him or hate him. I'm looking at the IMDb rating for The Love of the Game, and it's only at a 6.6. But I think this movie
I feel like that was a movie that like probably not everybody saw. I feel like it was because you're right. It was romance and it was sports and it was the way the story was told. It jumps around and not everybody likes that. But I really liked that movie and I quite enjoy Kevin Costner. I mean, I can't really think of anything he's done that I don't necessarily like. Right now, a huge fan of Yellowstone, which he's in, and I agree. I mean, maybe he's not the best actor in the world, but I enjoy him. I mean, I don't dislike him at all. I mean, I loved him in Field of Dreams. I mean, there's a true sports movie, and I loved that movie.
Yeah, Field of Dreams was a classic. I haven't seen Yellowstone yet. That's on my list to watch.
Oh, that's your homework then.
I know. I need to figure out how to watch it. It's on. Isn't it on what show? What TV station is that on?
It's on Paramount Network, which used to be Spike TV.
Yeah, I don't think I have that. I have YouTube TV now, so I don't get that.
Okay.
But I need to find a way to stream it.
I have all the streaming services plus cable, so I have like everything, and I'm paying too much money. I know that, but yeah. So I watched it on like Paramount.com, but I had to put in my DirecTV info to be able to watch it. So
That's on my short list for must watch. So okay,
yeah,
number
Billions
4.
is on mine. I'll be renting it from the library.
All right, number 4. What do you got?
All right, number 4. I have another sports movie, Mystery Alaska.
Mystery Alaska.
Yeah, I feel like this may be another movie that maybe not a ton of people saw. But again, it's about a little town called Mystery, Alaska, and they play hockey there because that's what they do in Alaska. They play hockey. And they get picked to play this outdoor game versus the New York Rangers. And, for the longest time, their golden boy, John Beebe, who's played by Russell Crowe, who is great in this movie. And this was just before Russell Crowe got really big. I think he had done The Insider before this, but then he goes on to do Gladiator and A Beautiful Mind and, becomes the Russell Crowe we all know now. But he's so sweet and sensitive and this great hockey player and great husband and dad in this movie. And it's just a really great movie about this small town and the way small towns work. And Hank Azaria is this guy who used to live in this small town. And then he goes, and makes it big in New York City. And he's the one who brings the New York Rangers here. And he thinks he's doing his town this huge favor. But it turns out that, it's not necessarily about, all the publicity and stuff. They're excited about this. But by the time the New York Rangers come, I mean, they're all a little nervous to actually, have to play them. They're televising this game and it gets a little dicey and they try to figure out how are we going to beat the New York Rangers, because they're the New York Rangers. So it's a good movie. I mean, there's so many little things to it, but it's one of those ones that made my list because I find myself wanting to watch it whenever it's on. You know, it's one I actually own the DVD of.
Yeah, you know what? That's one of those movies. If I see it on HBO or if I see it on cable, I will turn it on. Kind of like Shawshank. It's just one of those movies
Yeah,
where
it's
you
just one
have
of
to
those.
turn it
Yeah,
on.
I want to watch it. Yeah, Mark and I both find ourselves wanting to watch it like at least once a year. You know, sometime in the winter, it's like, let's watch that. You know, it's a flick that makes me happy. There's so many like little people in it that I have played these like bit roles. I don't feel like there's huge actors in it other than really Russell Crowe and Burt Reynolds and Hank Azaria, but he plays kind of a small part in it. But there's all these like the other actors that you like see pop up in all these movies, and they're all in this. I couldn't even tell you what half of them are from, but I'm like, yeah, I know that guy. He's from, you know, something else. So yeah, it's just a movie that I really enjoy.
It was definitely Russell Crowe before Russell Crowe was Russell
Yes.
Crowe, because I remember
Yep.
watching this the first time and having no idea who he was.
Right.
And then I remember seeing when it came on cable or when I rented it a couple years later, and I realized, holy shit, that's Russell Crowe.
That's the Gladiator.
Yeah, exactly. Because by the time Gladiator came out, and
Yep.
I want to say The Insider came out after this, because I want to say
The Insider was in '99. But I
Was it?
don't know. But I don't know if it was before or after Mystery Alaska. And the other movie he was in that was pretty big was L.A. Confidential, and that
Yeah.
was in '97. But again, like The Gladiator is what really like pushed him over the edge. And obviously, what a different role to play than any of those other two. With The Insider and L.A. Confidential, he's still just playing a regular guy.
Yeah, I missed the boat on
Gladiator.
LA Confidential. I still have not seen that movie from start to finish, and I'm sure I need to, but
I
yeah.
feel like I've seen it, but honestly, I couldn't even tell you about it. So if I saw it, apparently it didn't resonate for me.
Okay, so for number 4, I went with The Blair Witch Project. Now,
Oh, totally different direction. Nice.
yes, and I will say this movie had its flaws. This movie had a lot of flaws. The reason I picked it is because the way that they presented it, it
Mhm.
was nobody knew back then. Let me backtrack a little bit. So the internet was around back then, as you know, but the internet wasn't the internet like it is now.
No.
You
No.
Google. I don't even think I knew what Google was in 1999, and I
No,
don't even know.
I don't think so either.
I may have to fact check that. I don't even know if Google was even out in 1999, but it wasn't a thing. People didn't have smartphones. People didn't have the internet in their pockets at all times. So the reason I bring that up is because everybody thought this movie was real footage when it came out,
Mhm.
because the trailers that they presented, I remember going to a movie earlier in the year where they presented this as a documentary where it said
Yep.
3 film students go into the woods and were never heard from again or never seen from again or something to that effect. And it said 5 years later or whatever, or 2 years later or 1 year later, their footage was found. So, and there was nothing to indicate that it was bullshit. And so
Totally. Yeah.
I think by the time I went to go see it, I think I knew that it wasn't a documentary. And I think I may have learned that by reading Roger Ebert's review on it. But the way that it was filmed, I believe it was filmed with handheld camcorders, just like
Mhm.
the recorders that they were using as the film students that they portrayed. So it was filmed like it would have been filmed if it was a documentary. I don't believe they used makeup or anything like that. And there's a lot of urban legends going around about how this movie was actually shot. One of the urban legends I heard, and I'll probably have to do a little bit more research on this at some point, but I heard that they sent the actors out into the woods. They gave them some kind of an idea of what was going to happen, but they didn't tell them exactly what was going to happen, because I think they wanted to capture some genuine response.
Yeah.
So obviously they knew that they were doing a film, but I don't think they realized what they were going to encounter or when they were going to encounter it. So the acting in it was pretty damn good. And I don't know if you remember the part where the character Heather does a close up and she is doing a monologue about how scared she is. She says, I am
Mhm.
so scared right
Yeah,
now.
it's the word. I mean, she literally almost has like a selfie on, right? Her camera's like right in her
Yep.
face. Yeah, I can picture that.
And the tears are forming,
Yep.
and it was just kind of a cool shot, kind of a cool scene.
Hmm.
I will say this isn't a movie where I go out of my way to rewatch, and
Agreed.
I don't even know if I've ever seen it again all the way through since I saw it in the theater. I probably rented it one time and watched it again, but since then I don't think I've rewatched it. So it doesn't have a really good rewatchable factor to it. I'm just giving it a nod because I feel like it was something that we had never seen before. It was very creative the way it was done, the way they presented it as a documentary, and then the way they filmed it as if it was a documentary. So that's why I gave it my number 4 slot. It's not quite up there. It's just for the originality.
It's 100%. I mean, at that time, we had never seen anything like that come out. Just the way they presented it, we all believed it was true at first. I think everybody did until they really had to do some digging to find out, okay, this is actually, pretty much staged. But I do agree. I think those 3 kids that were out in the woods, didn't know 100% of what was happening. And when Heather's giving her monologue, she probably is scared because I don't even know that she was an actress. So I think they were like genuinely like feeling all the emotions and stuff, but just the way they presented it to the world was super cool. We didn't know anything like that. Now with, Google at our fingertips, it's different. You wouldn't be able to get away with something like that nowadays. So
Right,
I agree.
totally.
I mean, I agree. It doesn't have the rewatchability like some of these movies do, but it totally deserves a spot in your top 5 based on what it was, because it was one of a kind.
All right. So number 3, what do you got?
Okay, number 3. I laugh at my top 5 because I feel like they're ones that I wouldn't necessarily pick now. Like, I feel like my taste has kind of changed. But this movie is so iconic to our generation, and it is American Pie. I mean, I don't know if there's another movie. Well, there's another movie in my top 5 that's similar in a way. But these high school movies, they still like resonate. And again, like some of these people, I mean, it was so cool to like see them grow up and who they are now. Like, these were some of the first movies for Allison Hannigan, Natasha Lyonne, Jason Biggs, Chris Klein, Shannon Elizabeth, Sean William Scott. Thomas Ian Nicholas, he had done stuff before. He did Rookie of the Year. And Tara Reid had done some stuff. Tara Reid was in Urban Legend and Cruel Intentions. But this movie was such a launch pad for all these guys. I mean, well, Mina Suvari, she was in American Beauty the same year.
What I love about this movie is the class of 1999, people like us, this movie and all the sequels followed our lives, like the stages of our lives, all the way for the next 20 years almost.
Yeah, until they did American Wedding.
So American Pie came out when we were all in high school and graduating, and then the next one followed them when they went to college, and that came out when we would have been in college. And then what was the third one? American Wedding?
Yeah, I think the third and final one was American Wedding.
No, there was another one. There was American Reunion after American Wedding.
Oh, yes.
So they kind of released these along the same milestones that we would have been hitting as graduates of the class of 1999. And that's one of the things I really love about that. It also evokes a lot of memories from high school and from senior year of high school.
Oh, totally.
These kids, it was a really accurate depiction, I feel, for what high school was really like for kids in our time. Maybe a little bit over the top.
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously it's a little dramatized and a little, I mean, Stifler. Come on. Everybody had like a friend like Stifler. His character was just so, relatable. And so was Jason Biggs and Chris Klein being this jock who then wants to be in choir. Stifler's mom. I mean, they're such like iconic characters. I still can't look at Jennifer Coolidge and not think of her as Stifler's mom.
So looking at this cast, back in the day when this came out, everybody thought Chris Klein was going to be the next.
Yes.
He was going to be like the next Brad Pitt. He was the name to watch.
Yes,
and
he was.
He kind of vanished into nowhere. I haven't seen him in anything.
And I'm pretty sure he was dating, maybe engaged to Katie Holmes for a while.
No kidding. I didn't know that.
And then she goes and marries Tom Cruise. So go figure.
Who would you consider the most successful cast member from American Pie looking at this cast?
That's a tough one. Natasha Lyonne's had a career like in movies that you haven't really heard of or in TV shows. She's in Orange is the New Black. So I feel like she's had a pretty big career, but not like Oscar-wise career.
Right.
Tara Reid was probably the biggest one for a while, and then kind of got into like drugs and alcohol, and she kind of fell off the map. I don't know. That's a tough question.
My vote, I think that Sean William Scott probably had the most commercial success for the longest amount of time.
Yeah, what did he go on to do? Was he in Road Trip?
He was in Road Trip. He was in The Goon.
He was in that Up a Creek or whatever with Jack Shepard.
Without a paddle.
Without a paddle, yeah.
That was another funny one. And then he was also in that movie with Paul Rudd. It's not that old either. Role Models. That was one of my favorite comedies.
No, you're right. Yeah,
years.
It's probably him. Because I feel like all of them have done something, have gone on to do something. So I would probably say, Sean William Scott and probably Natasha Lyonne.
And the poor guy, I mean, Sean William Scott, God bless him, but he's been cast as Steve Stifler his entire career.
100%. Yeah, I mean, he's totally typecast. But you know what? He plays the character really well. And he has, you're right, had probably the most commercial success. Like, he probably has the most movies that I could name.
So Mina Suvari, she kind of had a nice little run in there. She had the American Pie movies. She was also in American Beauty in 1999. And I think she was kind of earmarked to be one of the next people in Hollywood, and she kind of never panned out either. I can't even remember.
She did a few things for a while, but then just kind of fell off also.
Same thing with Jason Biggs. I mean, Jason Biggs had a couple of good ones there. He was in Saving Silverman, Orange is the New Black, and there's probably a few other ones in there that I'm missing, but I kind of thought that he would do more as well.
I did too. Him and his wife do some things, and I can't. Jenny Mullen. They do some stuff, and they do some like reality type stuff, and they're really funny together. And she's like big into The Bachelor and stuff, so they do some kind of stuff with that. But yeah, like movie wise, he didn't do as much as I thought he would, because I did think that was like such a huge platform for him. But I do enjoy him when I see him on things. I've seen him on different things here and there, and he's very similar. He's very similar to his character from American Pie.
This is a good pick, and I kind of struggled to put this on my list or not to put this on my list. It's definitely one of my favorite movies in the time, and back in 1999, if you were to ask me when I was 18 years old, this definitely probably would have been my number one or number two movie. Unfortunately, it didn't make my list, but what did make my list for my number three would be Fight Club.
Excellent movie.
This was a weird one for me when it came out. This is probably one that may not have even made my top five if you would have asked me in December of 1999. I remember when the first time I saw it in the theater, I remember walking out of the theater saying, what the fuck did I just watch?
Right.
It was definitely interesting. I mean, Brad Pitt and Ed Norton are both great. But I feel like when it came out, I don't think I was ready for Fincher yet. And David Fincher, obviously the director, has such a unique style. I love all of his movies now. He's probably in my top five directors of all time. He did Social Network. He did the Zodiac movie with Jake Gyllenhaal about the Zodiac Killer.
Yep.
He's done so many good movies, and Fight Club was probably the movie that I would guess. I'm not even going to say this one put him on the map, because he had some good stuff before Fight Club, but he's got such a unique and distinct style that I almost feel like you have to mature into it, because I was kind of walked out a little bit puzzled by this movie, and the longer I had to marinate in my brain, the more I came to appreciate the message in it, the acting in it, the cinematography in it. I mean, there's just so many little hidden nuggets of goodness in this movie that you miss on the first watch and you catch on the second watch.
Because I think when you're first watching it, you have no idea what you're really watching. You're going in with one mindset on what you think you're watching, and then it ends and you're like, what the hell did I just watch? It's like totally different than you thought it was going to be.
Yes.
And it's what makes it great. But
also brought in
a second and third watch make this movie so much better, because you're catching things.
Yes, and that's one thing with specific with Fight Club also is on the first watch you kind of have to take it at face value, exactly what you're seeing. You don't have a lot of time to analyze what exactly is going on. By the end of the first watch, I understood that Tyler Durden was the same person as Ed Norton's character, but the whole overall message that the movie brings with the anti-establishment, the anti-consumership, it kind of flew over my head. The 18-year-old me's head. It's definitely more appreciated with time.
Well, I just thought this movie in general, I was actually surprised that Edward Norton didn't get nominated for this movie, because I actually think he's quite good in it. And I think part of it is just the movie itself got overlooked for acting and general stuff, because he was fantastic in the previous movies he was in. He was in Primal Fear, and he was nominated for an Oscar for that, and he won the Golden Globe for that, and American History X. So those two, he was coming off of that. So I'm actually surprised that they passed him over, because he does a really good job of portraying this character.
And also, I mean, Brad Pitt, what an amazing performance he puts on as well. And I don't want to minimize Ed Norton's performance, because he did a great job too, but this is probably one of my favorite Brad Pitt roles. He's just got that. It's
very different for him, which is part of what I like.
It is, and I kind of feel like, and I'm not sure if this was made after 12 Monkeys. I think it was.
I think it was too.
I kind of feel like they were kind of trying to draw a little bit off of his performance in 12 Monkeys, a little bit over the top. Not like you've really seen him before.
Well, yeah, 12 Monkeys was he was off his rails in that one. He was so good in that.
So, Fight Club, my number three. Definitely underappreciated. Definitely wouldn't have made my list in 1999, but makes my list now.
All right. Moving on. My number two. I laugh at this because this is still, to this day, one of my all-time favorite movies. And it's another high school movie. And it is another sports movie also. And I don't really know what it is about this movie, other than maybe it just makes me feel really nostalgic. And I just appreciated this movie at the time. But it's Varsity Blues. And I just cannot get enough of this movie. I love this movie so much.
Instant classic, Varsity Blues. Instant classic.
I mean, I love all the people in it. Again, they're not like huge people, kind of like American Pie, but they're just such great actors, and they were so good at the characters they each played. And James Van Der Beek in this movie is
The beak.
just the lines that he gets. They're so quotable. And I still say them all the time. I mean, I find myself saying them to some of my volleyball players, and they're looking at me like, what are you talking about? Because they don't know what this movie is. I mean, but I mean, between him and Paul Walker and Scott Caan and Ron Lester, who plays Billy Bob, I mean, these guys are just, they're so like, I mean, you can relate to them. I mean, they were our friends walking down the hall, our football friends. And I mean, I just love this movie.
I love it too. It was a little bit exaggerated version. I think it was a little bit, these guys were a little bit more an exaggerated version of what high school was like in
Well,
1999.
but you have to remember, this was Texas high school football.
That is true. That is
So
true.
I don't know. I don't know how exaggerated. I know it wasn't Walled Lake football necessarily. That's not quite how our town was, even though we loved our football team and our football players. But I don't know. I have heard Texas football is quite crazy down there. So I don't know if it was like that or not. Maybe they did have a John Voight, Coach Kilmer down there.
Obviously, one of the shining moments or one of the shining points of this movie was a young Paul Walker. What a great performance as Lance Harbor, the quarterback.
Yes, I loved him, and I loved so many of the movies he did. I mean, he did one of my other favorite movies, which is not quite as big as the Fast and the Furious movies he did, but was Eight Below, that he actually did with Jason Biggs about the husky dogs up in, I think it was Antarctica. And I loved it. And he was so great in this movie as Lance Harbor. He played the role like perfectly. So cliche and so perfect. And Allie Larder in her whipped cream bikini.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that part. Well, not really, but what a great
How could you forget about that part?
Yeah. Who else we have in here? Scott Caan was in it as well. Tweeter.
Yeah, and I loved him. He's great in this movie, and he's probably my favorite character in this movie, and the stuff that he says is hysterical. And then he goes on, he's in the Ocean's movies, and now he's in Hawaii Five-0, which he's been in for like 10 years now. And he's great. I love him. And his dad is obviously a legend.
Now, I think this is a no-brainer, but who would you say had the most successful career of this cast?
Of this cast, probably Paul Walker.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like he went on to do the most stuff. I mean, James Vanderbeek did Dawson's Creek, but he was already doing that at the time, and I don't think John Voight counts. So,
yeah, I was gonna say obviously I'm not gonna count John Voight.
I mean,
in
Scott
that
Caan did some great stuff, but I think Paul Walker probably went on to do the most movies. I mean, how can you argue with the Fast and the Furious movies? I mean, he would still be doing them if he was here. So
I gotta tell you, I'm disappointed that Allie Larder was not more of a thing after this movie.
Yeah, no, she didn't do too much. She was in a show that I watched for a while called Heroes, which was a pretty cool show. But no, she didn't do too much, and I was surprised about that too. I don't really know where she went.
Looking through the cast in IMDb, it also looks like a young Jesse Plemons was on there as Tommy Harbor. I don't remember seeing him in that.
I don't either.
And he's coming up in that he's going to be in that new movie, The Irishman, that's coming up next month.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that. I've set aside some time for that, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah, you got to set aside like a half a week for that 3.5 hour runtime.
It might take me a couple nights to get through that one.
All right, so coming in on my number 2, I switched gears a little bit here from my first few ones. One of my all-time favorite movies, one of the most rewatchable comedies of all time, Office Space.
One of the most quotable movies of all time, too.
Definitely one of the most quotable movies. The thing I love about this movie is anybody that's ever worked in any kind of corporate culture role can appreciate this movie. Even it doesn't matter if you worked at a TGI Fridays or an Applebee's. Anybody that's worked
that's in there too.
Yeah. And I love the movie poster. The movie poster on the top just says "Work sucks," and it's got a guy just covered in Post-it notes.
Yep.
Mike Judge, he was the creator of Beavis and Butthead. He directed this. He wrote it. He did the. I guess this was based on the Milton animated shorts. He did a hell of a job with this. This brought a couple of people on the map. Ron Livingston.
Yeah.
I believe was he on Sex and the City at one point?
Yes, he was. He was Berger, and he breaks up with Sarah Jessica Parker on a Post-it note.
No kidding.
Yeah.
See, that's why I have you on here, because you remember shit like that.
I know. But I know, funny that there's a Post-it note man at the cover of Office Space, and then that's how Ron Livingston breaks up with Carrie Bradshaw.
You got a younger Jennifer Aniston playing Joanna the waitress, who is Peter, the main character's love interest. She has a pretty good role in this. I feel like she kind of looks at these guys as they're trying to pull off this heist, this dumbass plan that they have to skim fractions of pennies off of the big accounts. And she brings up the fact that, well, you guys are stealing, and it's like, well, we're kind of stealing. What a great movie. It's also got let's see, who else does it have in here? Diedrich Bader, Oswald from the Drew Carey Show.
Yeah.
He played Lawrence, kind of the hillbilly neighbor to Peter. Gary Cole, who I feel is one of the most underrated actors out
Oh,
there,
yeah,
plays
he's
Lumber.
hilarious. I feel like he's one of those guys that's just in everything. Like you just see him. Like I'm like, I can't remember what he's from, but he's just in everything. So when you get on IMDb, you're like, oh yeah, he was in that and in that and in that.
Does such a good job as Bill Lumberg in this movie. He nails the micromanaging,
Oh yeah, I'm gonna
monotone.
need you to come in on Saturday.
Hi, Bill Lumberg here. What a great role for him.
I'm just laughing. I can just hear all the different movie lines in my head right now. The
Th-
stapler.
This is definitely one that I have to watch.
Oh, shout out to Amy because
Yeah.
her and I we watched this so many times in college.
Oh yeah, I think my freshman or my sophomore year in college, I was living in Grand Rapids at the time. We had a DVD player, which was big time back then.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and I remember we used to watch this at least once a week.
Oh yeah, this was on all the time. This
You
was a
know,
great movie.
I don't believe we ever saw David Herman, aka Michael Bolton.
Michael Bolton.
I don't remember seeing too much more of him after Office Space.
No, I mean I can't really like place him in anything else. I mean, IMDb shows that he's done a lot. It looks like he's done a lot of voice work,
Yeah.
which makes sense. He did have a good voice.
Office Space is another one that's in its special little niche where I don't think it had quite the commercial box office success. Obviously, everybody knew who Mike Judge was because everybody
Yeah.
in our generation loved Beavis and Butthead. So
Yep.
if you knew Beavis and Butthead, you knew who Mike Judge was. So, but I feel like this movie was another one where it didn't gain steam until it came out on DVD and started being shown on cable because I surely didn't see it until it was out on DVD, and I think I just rented it one random
Yeah,
night
I don't
and
remember
loved
going
it.
to the movies to see this,
So
but
that's
it definitely gained like a cult following.
and that's why it made my number two because it's still to this day one of my favorite comedies. It's got one of the most quotable scripts of all time for a comedy, and it just
And it
has
had, I know, and they were genius by putting Jennifer Aniston in there because she was such a huge actress at the time.
oh yeah, she was huge. She there was not many actresses that were bigger than her at that time. She was riding high on Friends, and everybody
Yep.
knew her, everybody loved her, and man, she still looks pretty much the same.
She looks the same. I was thinking that she just turned 50. There's a couple actresses that just turned 50, and she's one of them. Gwen Stefani is one of them, and I'm just like, what are they doing? Like, they look insane. I watched Gwen Stefani on The Voice, and I'm like, how is this woman 50?
Did you ever see We're the Millers with Jennifer Aniston?
Yes.
I love that movie.
Yes, I actually watched that not too long ago, a couple years ago, and that was good. That was really funny. I like these roles that she's doing now, or what she did with Horrible Bosses. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
these like it's still her because it's the comedy, but they're just like a stretch, on how she actually, we remember her as, from Friends. So I love
That-
these comedy roles that she takes because she's good.
Did you see that she broke Instagram like last week or the week before?
Yes, that was awesome.
She had like 6 million viewers or 6 million followers.
That was crazy.
Might even been more than that. She had just had millions of followers within, I think,
With
a day.
that with that one post that she put on there, which was
Yeah.
pretty cool. I mean, it's pretty fun to see the six of them together again because they're not normally together.
And she's got a new show coming out too, right? Or did it already start? Maybe I'm thinking of somebody
Oh
different.
yes, the morning show. The morning show with Steve Carell and Reese Witherspoon, and it's going to be on Apple TV. Another streaming
man.
service we'll have to buy.
Yeah, I'm on the fence. I told my wife last night that I don't want to get Apple TV
I don't
as
either.
of right now. It's
I
just
don't either, but I'd really like to see this show, so I don't know what I'm going to do.
yeah, that might be one of those depending on how they're released. If they release all of them at once, that might be a deal where
Right, get on it for a month and get off it.
Yeah, so usually I'm kind of on the other every other year with upgrading my phone, and I think right now if you get a new iPhone, they're giving you one free year
Oh,
subscription of Apple
okay.
TV.
Okay.
So I'm gonna wait to see how they release her show, and that show Jason Momoa's got one too. Did you see the preview for that?
I did, where he's blind, right? Or they're all blind, aren't
They're
they?
all blind. There's some disease that makes like
Is
the
that going
entire
to be on Apple TV too?
yes.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. It looks like it could be hit or miss. I mean, I think it
Yeah,
looks like
totally.
they're trying to get Game of Thrones audience.
For sure.
So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence. I want to wait and see what the reviews for that look like before I commit to it.
Right.
So, and I also want to see the reviews for this new Aniston show, and then I'm gonna decide when to upgrade my phone and then I have
See what
to
other shows are coming out first too. I'm
I'm
sure
gonna
they'll
have
add more on there.
binge the hell out of it.
More
for-
things we need to see.
Yeah, exactly. Just binge the shit out of it until I can
Totally.
get my years of subscription worth out of it. I'm kind of at a point now where I'm trying to reduce and not add as far as my subscriptions are. There's just so many out there. We got
Oh,
Netflix, we got Hulu,
I
we got
know. And here we
Amazon
are talking about
Prime.
adding Disney. Like, there's just,
I know. And here's my justification though for adding Disney. I think they have a package that you can add Hulu and ESPN Plus with it for
okay.
like an extra $6. Well, I'm already paying for Hulu, so the way I see it, I'm just paying an extra $6 to keep Hulu and Disney, and hey, I'm gonna get ESPN Plus with that.
Okay.
So
Oh,
that's my
ESPN Plus, so I
justification.
could watch Peyton's Places?
Yep, yep.
Oh, okay. I got to look into that because every week Mark and I are like so irritated that we can't watch these episodes of for Peyton Manning.
I love those little clips that they show on
Yeah, I
NFL
love
Sundays.
him. Okay, I YouTube commercials of Peyton Manning still because I love him so much.
I love the Saturday Night Live skit where he's
Oh,
playing football with the kids.
oh my gosh, yes. He is
He's
so funny.
where the
He's
kids get.
just like he's good people. I just love watching him. I want him on my TV all the time. So I'm like, yeah, okay, so ESPN Plus, see, that's just another little added bonus there. I could see more Peyton Manning.
I love that he stuck around. When Joe Montana retired, you never really saw Joe Montana after that. Steve Young is obviously still on
Yeah.
CBS, but none of these guys you really saw. None of these great quarterbacks really had a shelf life after they retired, and it's
Yeah,
kind of
no.
cool that Peyton Manning, you
Yeah,
know,
and he already like Peyton already had this little like following like with the comedy stuff him and Eli would do for Sports Center, like their little commercials and stuff like that. But he really just exploded it after he retired. I mean, the commercials, the ones with Brad Paisley and the ones he was doing, the Parmesan chicken and all that. Oh my gosh, he's
the
hilarious.
the nationwide commercials.
Nation, yeah. He's just yeah. Yeah, so I enjoy. I'm happy he's still on my TV.
I got hopes for Rob Gronkowski. Have you seen him on Fox pregame yet?
No, I haven't.
He's been making appearances on the Fox show. I believe it's on Thursday nights. They brought him in. They had him in 2 weeks ago for the Patriots
Oh,
game. I
he's
think.
probably entertaining.
Oh yeah, he's
Yeah, I like
hysterical,
Gronk.
and you know, it's got to be a lot of hard work to stop him from swearing because he just kind of seems like one of
Oh,
those guys there.
that it
Once they
just
get
flows, yeah.
going, yeah, he just lets it out. So
He's
I,
used to be in a locker room that time, not sitting on TV.
kudos for them for having the guts to put him on there. But I hope to see a little bit more from him. So.
Yeah.
Anyways, number two, Office Space. Who did you have coming in as your number one?
Oh, my number one. I'm so excited about my number one. And this would have been my number one almost any year. And this is in my top five, of my all-time favorite movies. A, it has Bruce Willis, who is one of my all-time favorite actors. B, it's a movie that kind of changed the way that I watch movies in general. And my number one favorite movie for 1999 is The Sixth Sense.
What a classic.
I just, it's kind of like Fight Club, right? Like you're watching it, you're watching it, you're watching it. But when you're done with Fight Club, you're like, what the hell did I just watch? Where when you were done with The Sixth Sense and you realize what's happening, you're like, holy shit. Like it all just starts to like click together. And you can and I was very excited to watch it a second and third time and you start to up on everything that's happening. And this is one of those things that I don't even remember how I found out too much about the insights of this movie because, like you mentioned earlier, we didn't really have Google and the internet at our fingertips. But I do remember hearing that every time there was something red in a scene, that's when death was around. So,
No
there
kidding.
was somebody. Yeah. So there's like a scene where Haley Joel Osment's character is at the birthday party and he gets stuck in that little room upstairs and you see
Right?
like a red balloon go up and pop.
No
And I
kidding.
think when Malcolm, who is Bruce Willis's character, and his wife go to dinner, which they don't really go to dinner, obviously. We know now that Malcolm's not really there. She either has a red dress on or there's a red napkin. So there's like little hints of like red all over, and that's supposed to indicate when there's someone who is dead around. And
Great. I'm gonna have to rewatch it
this
again now.
this movie, like, it introduced us really to I'm drawing a total blank now. M. Night Shyamalan,
Yeah.
who goes on to do like so many incredible movies after this, and then some really terrible movies. But for the most part, I just felt like I watched this movie and I was just like, it's one of those movies that just really made me actually love movies. And I just watched it and I'm like, how does his mind work like this? Like, who thinks like this? And then he went on and he did Unbreakable, another one with Bruce Willis, which I thought was, at the time, it wasn't one of my favorite ones. But then he went on to make Split, which just came out a couple of years ago, and then Glass, and make it a trilogy. And it's just, when you look at it as a whole, I really just appreciate those movies. But then my other favorite movie that M. Night did was Signs. Signs is another one that I still watch that I'm just like, it's a weird movie because it's about aliens, but the people in this movie, Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix, are just, it's such a good movie. And by the end of it, you realize that everything happens for a reason. And to this day, I still say swing away, Meryl, for so many different things because.
No kidding.
Yeah. But The Sixth Sense, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. I just can't get over how M. Night like changed movies and like the way I view them.
It also brought Donnie Wahlberg to the big screen.
It did. And he plays such a great role in this. I mean, it's a creepy role, but
it's a small role,
good.
but it's very, very great. Yeah.
It's very great, and it's very important to the movie.
And my wife's going to love that we're talking about Donnie Wahlberg. She's a huge New Kids on the Block fan. But
I was too.
Man, he is such a good actor. Like in my opinion, my wife's going to punch me for saying this, but he's a better actor than he is a musician. He played Carwood Lipton in Band of Brothers. He has that role in Blue Bloods.
And I don't watch Blue Bloods, and I wish I did. And my dad says he's excellent in that. My dad really likes that show.
He's really good. He's a really good actor, and I felt like this was a great breaking out for him as far as acting, because nobody had heard of Donnie Wahlberg in years.
And I think when we saw that he was in this, we were like, what? Like Donnie Wahlberg?
I didn't even know that was him.
He acted. Yeah, and I don't think I knew it was him at first either. And then you found out. He is. It's a very small part, but he's really good in it.
So M. Night Shyamalan for me is hit or miss, and I think he peaked with this movie. He has some other good movies. I'll agree with you on that. There are some other good ones. I feel like this was probably his masterpiece, and it's kind of unfortunate because I felt like,
well, after this movie, I feel like he was held to such a high standard, and we kept every movie that he did after this, you're like waiting. Like, where is it? What's the twist? Where is it? And there were in a lot of them, but some of them just weren't as good as others.
So going through some of his movies, Unbreakable, I really liked. I didn't love like I loved The Sixth Sense.
Agreed.
The Sixth Sense was just such a it was groundbreaking because you had no clue, because nobody knew who Shyamalan was when this movie came out. So nobody was expecting the twist, and then when the twist came, everyone was like, "Whoa, that was crazy!
Like, what just happened?" Exactly. You just draw on the floor.
And even then, though, going on to his next movie, Unbreakable, I wasn't expecting a twist to come in Unbreakable because I didn't know that was going to be his shtick.
His thing, right.
Right. And I think, like you said, I think he kind of pigeonholed himself because now everybody's expecting it. I think he could probably do some good movies and just avoid it. But some of the other movies he had, Unbreakable was good. Signs I loved as well. Joaquin Phoenix. Mel Gibson before he was a psychopath, woman hater. And one of the movies I love of his, of Shyamalan, is The Village. You've ever seen that one?
Okay, I like The Village too. That got a lot of hate, but I actually appreciated it. And I like to try and like just appreciate movies for what they are. So I did with that one. Is it my favorite that he's done? No. But I actually enjoyed it. Is it one that I want to watch over and over again? No. But I did appreciate the twist in that one. I didn't see it coming.
Yeah, for sure. Same here.
Now,
I had no idea.
Lady in the Water? No. You couldn't pay me to watch Lady in the Water again? I thought it was terrible.
Never saw it.
The acting was pretty good. Like, I liked some of the guys in it, but I didn't like Lady in the Water. And the most disappointing one to me was The Happening. It had Mark Wahlberg in it. I was so excited for it, and it just didn't land.
Was that the one where the air was killing everybody?
Yes.
Very anticlimactic.
Yes, and again, I try to appreciate movies for what they are, and that one I just couldn't get on board with that one.
It just kind of ended, and I never saw that one
exactly
in the theater.
It just pretty much ended, and I was like, huh? Like, that was it?
It got horrible reviews in the box office, and so that kind of led to what I felt like was his decline. I never saw The Last Airbender, never saw After Earth, never saw Wayward Pines.
Everything he kind of did after that wasn't really, they didn't have the twist. Like The Last Airbender was just, it was what it was. It was more like sci-fi. It wasn't really, there was no twist to it. And then Wayward Pines I wanted to see, but then I got nervous it was going to be a little too creepy for me, so I didn't watch it. But he really redeemed himself with Split. It's a weird movie, and that's a little creepy itself, but the fact that you didn't even know that this was a sequel until like the last 30 seconds of the movie was super cool. Like when we see Bruce Willis's character sitting there at the diner and you realize that this is actually a sequel to Unbreakable, I was like, there's the twist right there, like blown away again. And I thought that, again, not quite this what Sixth Sense made me feel, but I was pleasantly surprised, and I was excited about that.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit on one point of that. So I did like Split. I love Split. I thought it was great. And I love, who's the main character?
James McAvoy.
James McAvoy is a hell of an actor.
Excellent. He's really good in it. And again, like he's one I'm like, feel like he should be nominated for stuff like that. I'm like, what qualifies people being nominated for Oscars and Golden Globes? Because the way he acted in that, all those personalities was great.
So I thought he was great. Now, I felt like Split and Unbreakable. I still haven't seen Glass, and I'm not sure. I'm kind of on the fence if I'm going to see it or not. I just kind of felt like The Sixth Sense should. Or I'm sorry, not The Sixth Sense. I felt like Unbreakable should just stand alone. I really don't. I didn't feel like they should have tied that into a trilogy. Same thing with Split. I felt like he kind of tarnished an otherwise good movie by tying them all together. That's why
I guess what I liked about it is, part of me is probably because I love Bruce Willis and I love his character. So I was kind of excited to see his character and see where he was now. And otherwise, I felt like if Split was just what it was just kind of a weird movie about this crazy guy with personalities. So I felt like when they tied it into that he was a superhero just like these other guys, it made more sense to me, I guess.
Yeah, in Split, I kind of felt like, here's the other thing with Split. I did like the movie, but I liked it a lot better before they showed that he actually had these superhuman powers. When he starts climbing on the ceiling and everything, it kind of lost me a little bit. I thought it was better when this guy was just a guy with psycho with multiple personality disorder, and it was, kidnapping these people and holding them prisoner. And then they kind of lost me a little bit once they delve into they introduce the supernatural aspect of
but
it.
I feel like when the supernatural gets introduced is where it makes sense to tie it into Unbreakable.
Yeah, I guess if you're gonna tie it into Unbreakable, then it makes sense. And I liked Unbreakable better as a movie, but I feel like Unbreakable better as a movie than I like Split. And I think it makes more sense for Unbreakable to be part of a trilogy, because I remember watching Unbreakable for the first time and thinking, man, this is a really good movie. And then when I saw they're kind of making him a comic book superhero, superpowers, I'm like, this is awesome. I was kind of hoping that, hey, this is going to be the next franchise. They're going to have a couple of different movies with Bruce Willis. He's going to play this guy. And then it ended. And then all of a sudden they bring it back,
16
20
years later. Yeah. Unbreakable is definitely the best standalone movie out of all of them. Split itself, I don't love the movie, but I love that it tied into it because I liked Unbreakable so much. But I agree, Unbreakable could have just stood by itself and been okay.
What about Glass? Did you see that one?
Glass was okay. I liked it because it just gives you a little bit more backstory on them and ties it all together. But again, had we not had Split, Glass is totally irrelevant. I don't necessarily love how Glass ends, but I like that it ties everything together and there is a conclusion. Okay. I won't ruin it for you in case you want to see it.
Okay, so going back to Sixth Sense, we are introduced to a young Haley Joel Osment who kind of falls off the map in acting. He had paid it forward after this, and then he had a couple of smaller roles.
Yeah, another Kevin Spacey. That was a great movie.
Yep, and then he kind of falls off the map, and then he reappears as an awkward, overweight Haley Joel Osment in the Entourage movie.
Yep. But yeah, he does, which is so disappointing because he was nominated for Best Actor or Supporting Actor for an Oscar and for a Golden Globe. I mean, but that happens to kids sometimes. These young kids that do get nominated for this stuff and do have this early great success, it doesn't really translate later in life. I mean, not everybody is Jodie Foster. So
I love Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense, but what kind of tarnishes Bruce Willis for me in Bruce Willis movies is I read stories about how he's such a pain in the ass to work with.
Really?
Yeah. Does that, and not specifically in this instance, but does that ever ruin an actor for you when you hear something about them
totally.
in real life, and then you have trouble? It's like me with Spacey in American Beauty. I can't watch American Beauty with the same eyes as I used to, just because knowing what a creeper Spacey is, I don't want to watch it anymore. And it's kind of the same thing.
Also, I can go the other way too. I feel like there's maybe an actor that I don't love, but then you hear such great things about them, and they're like, oh, they do this for kids, or they do this, and they donate this money, and I'm like, oh, and it makes you like that actor more. So yeah, I definitely feel like we unfortunately now just know way too much about people. I mean, we know everything about people in Hollywood, and that can either bode well for them or work against them.
So who knows if it's accurate with Bruce Willis, and he has a ton of good movies that I love, but that kind of tarnishes a little bit for me is with Bruce Willis movies is that you just hear that he's a pain in the ass to work with, and I'm like, whatever, you don't respect as much of what you see of his anymore. Yeah. But I hope I'm wrong, and I could be wrong. So my number one,
let's hear it.
All right. So my number one is another one that 1999, looking back, was a good year for movies as far as questioning not only reality, but bringing such a uniqueness to the big screen with movies like The Sixth Sense, where you're presented this movie one way and you're watching it for 2 hours, only to find out in the end that it's a completely different movie than what you were watching. And it made you realize that you missed a lot of stuff, like looking back at Malcolm's Ghost and
Yep.
how he interacted with the other characters and all the little things like the temperature going down
Oh, the
when
temperature. Yeah. Good
the
one.
ghosts were coming down.
Yep.
So, in the spirit of 1999 movies that make you question reality, to go hand in hand with The Sixth Sense and Fight Club, my number one was I have to go with The Matrix. And the reason I have to go with The Matrix is because the effect that that movie had on me, 18-year-old me, walking out of the movie theater when I saw it for the first time. This movie made me question my own reality, and it made me question reality itself after watching it. And I remember just being so blown away at the notion that more could be going on in our world than
That we
what
don't
we
even
see.
realize. Yep.
Yes, it had such real world application and real world possibilities that I just loved it. And I think I love the concept more than I actually love the actual movie. I like Keanu Reeves. I'm not a huge Keanu Reeves fan per se, to where I'm gonna have to go out and see every movie that comes out with him in it. I still haven't seen any of the John Wick movies. I know I'm probably living in sin because
Nope,
I
I
haven't
haven't
seen
seen
any
them
of them.
either.
They're definitely on my list because all I've heard is good things about them, and you hear such good things about Keanu Reeves, and that's probably a good example of what you were just talking about
Yeah.
a few minutes ago, where you hear all these good things that people do. You hear a lot of interviews with Keanu. I think he's had some personal struggles in his life. I think he lost a spouse or
Yeah.
a girlfriend about 10,
Yeah.
10,
A
15 years ago.
while ago. Yeah. And I think he's in a world where like people are in, Hollywood lies. I think he's a very quiet person, and he doesn't like to share a lot of his personal life, which good for him.
Yep.
And I think what I find interesting about him is I do think he's this very quiet, reserved soul, and then he plays these characters like John Wick or like his character Neo in this movie that are just so not anything like him, which I think is, cheers to him for being able to play a character like these guys.
Looking back, he's got quite a resume too as an
Oh,
actor.
he really does.
I mean, he's been in a lot of movies. He is, how do I calculate his age here? He was born in 1964, so that means
64.
he's what, 50? Oh man, I'm so bad at math. That means he's 56. Does that sound right? Yep. So
Yeah,
so for 51, number one, 56 years old,
35.
55 years old, this guy ages very well. But
For starters, yeah.
going back through his resume, my first experience with Keanu was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures.
Yes, which they're making another one of.
I know, and I don't know.
I can't wait.
Actually, you know what? Hang on one second. We'll go back to Bill and Ted's. My
Okay.
first Keanu experience was, man, I'm scrolling down his IMDb and
I
I
know,
keep
there's
finding more and
so
more movies.
much.
I'd have to say Youngblood, but that movie's so old I don't remember it. I remember watching it when I was a kid. I have never watched it since. So that would be my first Keanu experience. But then coming up to Parenthood
Bill and
would
Ted's
probably
was probably
be.
my favorite. Yeah, Parenthood.
Oh wait, Bill and Ted's came out first. It was like
Yeah, Bill and
Bill and
Ted.
Ted's
Bill
came
and
out
Ted looks like Bill
89.
and Ted's came out. They both came out in '89. Bill and Ted's was probably just released first.
So yes, and then Bill and Ted's and Parenthood. You get this idea of Keanu. You think he's this surfer
Stupid
dude,
surfer dude. Yep.
airhead, and you kind of think that's the way he is in real life. And he took a lot of flack for years just for
Yeah.
his acting skills, or what people called his lack of acting skills. And
Yep.
it's kind of interesting because now he's kind of looked at as one of the go-to people in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But you go back to Bill and Ted's, you go back to Parenthood. You ever seen I Love You to Death?
Mm-mm.
That
I haven't.
is another homework assignment. That is a great movie. Came out in 1990.
Love You to Death.
Not a lot of people have heard of it. It stars Kevin Kline. Kevin Kline plays
Oh gosh, yeah.
he plays this Italian immigrant business owner. He owns like a pizza parlor. I know it's very stereotypical. But he plays this pizza parlor owner who's married to, oh gosh, what is her name? Tracy Ullman, I think.
Tracy Ullman looks like, yeah.
He's married to Tracy. He's married to Tracy Ullman. It's got William Hurt in it. It's got Keanu Reeves in it. It's got a young River Phoenix.
Oh, River Phoenix. Oh my gosh.
So Kevin Kline plays this womanizing pizza parlor owner who's cheating on his wife, and I don't want to spoil the whole thing for you, but it basically his wife and his mother-in-law find out what he's doing on his extracurricular time, and they conspire to murder him with these buffoons, Keanu Reeves and William Hurt. And Keanu Reeves and William Hurt basically steal the show with their performance. They're hysterical. You got to watch this movie. I don't want to ruin it for you, so I'm not going to tell you anything else.
Okay.
But it's one of those. It's another one of those movies that I didn't know about until actually my mom, of all people, told me about it. I never even heard of it until it was already out on
I definitely feel like I've heard of it, but I didn't know what it was about.
So yeah, that's one to watch for you. So then Point Break, that was another good one. He played Johnny
That was
Utah.
a good one. I like that one.
I think he was in that with Swayze. That was another good one. Then he had a string of kind of not so good movies. He had Bram Stoker's Dracula, which was with Gary Oldman. It wasn't that great. That was actually on TV the other day, by the way.
Was it?
Yeah. Also had Winona Ryder in it. That was a good one. And then this guy's like Captain Comeback. 1994 comes out in Speed. And everybody loves Speed.
I mean, who didn't love Speed?
Sandra Bullock, Keanu Reeves, Dennis Hopper. That was, and actually,
I probably watched that movie 50 times. I mean, I loved that movie so much.
I think I watched it in the theater like 3 or 4 times alone, and then obviously,
that was fantastic.
Came out on tape. Yeah, so that was another good one. He makes his comeback, and then he goes back into a little bit of obscurity. He got the Johnny Mnemonic, A Walk in the Clouds, Chain Reaction, all okay movies, but nothing to write home about. And then another one of his most underrated movies that not a lot of people like, but I loved, was Devil's Advocate with Pacino.
Yeah, I didn't see the whole thing. I've seen parts of it, and I think I thought it was weird, which is why I probably didn't see the whole thing.
It's definitely weird. It's definitely got over the top Al Pacino. Al Pacino's kind of has 2 different flavors that he goes with in his movies. He's either like way over the top, or he's just very spot on. I love Pacino. That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But Devil's Advocate came out. I love that one. And then 1999 comes out, and The Matrix.
The Matrix.
Yeah. And it has a great cast. I'm a little bit disappointed. I heard that in the new one, there's a new Matrix movie coming out, right?
Yeah.
So I heard Lawrence Fishburne is not going to be playing Morpheus. I'm kind of bummed out about that. And I hope they change it. I hope they at least use his voice. He's getting up there in age, and I think it's a little bit. He hasn't aged as gracefully as Keanu, or that's probably not fair to say because he's older than Keanu. So hopefully they'll use his voice. But so The Matrix comes out. It just has all these twists and turns, and the thing that blew my mind was that it turns out that mankind is basically batteries for robots. We're serving as our life force is being sucked out of us, and to power up these robots in the real world. And in the meantime, they have us plugged into the Matrix, and that's what we know life as. And
again, like, kudos to these writers who come up with this stuff, because they A, who thinks like this, but then B, it really makes you think, which I think is what the Matrix was supposed to do, like make you think.
So the writers and directors of this movie back then they were the Wachowski brothers, and now they're just known as the Wachowskis. That's another interesting story in a whole other podcast. They've actually, I believe, they both transitioned.
I think
women,
so too.
Which is no problem with that. They've done their fair share of good movies. They actually they went on to do some. They kind of always had a little bit of weirdness to them, and their movies have been hit or miss with me as well. They had V for Vendetta, which I loved. Have you ever seen that one? That was a
show, wasn't it?
No, that was a movie that came out with.
I'm thinking of a show that was.
It was Natalie Portman and.
Oh, okay.
The guy that plays Agent.
Hugo Weaving.
Weaving.
Yes, is in The Matrix also.
Also in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. He's got that really cool villain voice.
Yeah.
So the Wachowski brothers.
Cool. He looks like he should be in all that stuff.
So then, after that though, the Wachowskis kind of lost me a little bit. Speed Racer in 2008.
Jupiter Ascending. That was another one that was like bizarre. Cloud Atlas.
And
Cloud Atlas. That was super weird.
Yes. Yeah, it was really weird. And actually, I've never finished that movie because of how weird it was.
And I wanted to see it because there's a lot of good people in it, but it was it was beyond me.
What about Sense8? You ever watch that one?
Okay, I've seen the first season. I have not seen the second season or the movie that wraps it up, but I actually quite enjoyed it. It's very odd, but it was interesting how like it ties all these people together and everybody's connected in some way, and I thought it was pretty good.
And then did they cancel that after the?
They canceled it after the second season, I believe. They canceled it after the second season, but then there was so much fan uproar that they did a 2-hour movie to wrap it up.
Okay. So going back to The Matrix, we got another great cast. We got Keanu, who we've already talked about. We got Lawrence Fishburne, who's had a great career. And actually, do you remember watching Pee-wee's Playhouse back in the day?
Yeah.
Lawrence Fishburne was Cowboy Curtis, if you can believe that, or if you can remember that.
Oh my gosh. I kind of can picture him, actually.
And his career is
Pee-wee's Playhouse.
He's getting up there, and he's getting up there in age. He was actually in the original, I believe he was in Apocalypse Now, billed as Larry Fishburne back then. And of course he was also in Boys in the Hood, Higher Learning, which I loved him in both of those. I thought in Higher Learning he played that professor that was a great role for him. Who else we got in The Matrix? Carrie-Anne Moss, who also kind of had a couple of really good roles. She was obviously in the Matrix trilogy, and then she was also in Memento, Christopher Nolan's movie. Who I've heard they're remaking that, which I don't understand.
Really?
Yeah, I don't understand why we'd remake that.
Yeah, not really the movie I'd pick to remake, but cool movie.
He's remaking it too, so I don't know I don't know why or how that works out, but. Carrie-Anne Moss, also good in it. Hugo Weaving, obviously good. And then Joey Pantoliano. I can't even pronounce his last name.
Pantoliano.
Man, he's been in so much good stuff. He was obviously in The Sopranos. He was in what was that movie with Tom Cruise?
Yep, he's just another. I'm looking him up on IMDb. He is just another one of those actors that's literally in everything. He's been in 151 things.
Joey Pants. Played Cypher. He was good. He was good.
Yeah, he's just in everything.
And
he's in Sense8.
He was in what? Oh, yeah,
Sense8.
He was really?
Yeah. Which isn't surprising. A lot of times they like people they work with and cast them in similar, same things.
And that's one thing I noticed. That's one thing I noticed looking through all these movies in the cast. You see a lot of people that pop up in other stuff with other people. And
or they they worked on something together and then they go to something else and they're like, let's get this guy. Yeah, I've always, wondered how.
I think directors have their favorites too. Like for years.
Obviously, like Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio. I mean,
before I was gonna say Scorsese and De Niro, and then it turned into Scorsese and DiCaprio, and now it looks like he's going back to De Niro. I really wish Leonardo would be in that.
I know you almost wonder, is he gonna like pop in like some sort of bit part in it? It's 3.5 hours. He could.
Yeah, he could. I don't think so. I think they want to leave it. They want to leave it to the old school people.
Yep.
Which I'm really excited. The most excited I am for The Irishman is bringing back Joe Pesci.
Yes, I was just reading about him today that they literally begged him for like 3 years to get him to come out of retirement.
It was mainly from what I've read. It's mainly Robert De Niro that was begging him to get him back in. I'm so excited to see him back on the big screen.
Yeah, me too. That's another one that I watch all the time. My Cousin Vinny. That one just always pops up on my TV all the time.
What a classic! I was hoping that would be in 1999 when this came out.
That's a great movie.
That would probably be my number two, probably my top two for whatever year that came out. I don't care what year it came out. It's automatically my top two. What a classic! What a classic comedy, courtroom comedy. It's just
it's fast talking. I love it. I love the flow of that movie and how they represent.
Such good quotable lines.
Totally.
Marissa Tomei was at her best.
Oh, she is. Oh my
Joe
gosh,
Pesci,
she's so good in that movie. Ralph Macchio.
Ralph Macchio. I believe that's Ralph Macchio hasn't been in a ton since then. And actually, I just started watching Cobra Kai. Have you watched that yet?
Oh no, I haven't.
It's a lot better than you would think. It's on YouTube. I get it for free because it's on YouTube TV, and that's my cable provider right now. You can also, I think you can get the first episode for free if you just watch it on YouTube, and then if you go YouTube Red, I think that's the premium YouTube account. I think it's cheaper than getting YouTube TV. I think you can see it, but it's really well done. It's got Ralph Macchio, William Zabka, both reprising the roles as Johnny and Daniel. They do a great job. It's actually less cheesy than you think it would be. It's got some real plot in it, and I just started watching it. I'm enjoying it. So, all right, Erin. Well, I think we've covered some good stuff today. What a great year 1999.
I mean, we could talk for hours probably more about the movies that were in 99, but
I know there was probably about 10 to 15 other ones that I wanted to put on my list, and it was really hard to narrow it down. I think we got a good 10 between the two of us. A lot of good stuff here. Thanks for coming back on the show. We love having you
it was
on.
great. I'd love to come back and talk about something else. We'll find something else to talk about.
We will find something else. Maybe next time we'll do 1999 TV shows or music or something like that. We'll figure it out. We got to do it before the reunion. Hopefully, I hope our class enjoys listening to this.
Which is next month. That's so soon. We're almost in November. I can't even believe it.
I can't even believe that we're
crazy.
We've been out of high school for 20 years. That's insane.
I know. I'm so excited to see everybody, though. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. All right. Well, thank you for coming back on. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Good to talk to you, Tim.
All right. That's all we have for today. Special thanks to Erin Miller for joining us. Don't forget to check out our website at www.troycast.com. Until next time, keep it real.